Okay, so how on earth did one single scene from a kid's movie back in 1971, a scene that was meant to be a punishment no less, become the blueprint for this massive, complex, and, well, pretty widespread erotic fantasy? Today we're going to dive into the very strange journey of blueberry inflation. It's a story about fear, it's about desire, and it's about how the human brain can take something horrifying and turn it into play.
This quote, it just nails it, doesn't it? It perfectly captures that weird, unsettling confusion so many of us felt. You're just a kid, you're watching a movie, and bam, you get hit with this bizarre transformation of Violet Bjorgegard. And for a lot of people, it kicked up the strange cocktail of fear, fascination, and a kind of shame you couldn't even put a name to yet. It was a formative moment that, for some, planted a very, very weird seed.
So, here's the big idea for today. This isn't just some random internet thing. Blueberry inflation is, when you get right down to it, a unique form of soft body horror. It takes all the terror of a grotesque transformation and just systematically repurposes it, turning it into a very specific, very detailed erotic fantasy.
Now, to really get that comparison, we've got to break down the pieces. So let's start with the genre that this whole thing is mirroring, body horror. At its core, body horror is all about that deep, primal fear that your own body could betray you. It's that horrible, creeping thought that your flesh could just mutate, transform, and become something that isn't really you anymore. And this isn't just about blood and guts, it's a profound psychological dread.
And the masters of this stuff, guys like David Cronenberg or Clive Barker, they do something really fascinating. They deliberately smash the grotesque and the sexual together. They create this feeling of erotic terror, right? Where pain and pleasure get so tangled up you can't tell them apart. The body isn't just a place for horror, it becomes a place for forbidden sensation.
Okay, so that's body horror. Now let's flip the coin over and look at the other side, this surprisingly detailed fantasy that grew out of that one movie scene. You're going to see how it builds on these exact same ideas.
And what's wild is that this isn't just a vague idea. There's a script, a surprisingly consistent narrative with these very clear steps. It all starts with the choice, chewing that forbidden gum. Then comes the blue bloom as the skin changes. That leads into the swelling, and the clothes straining and ripping is a huge moment in the fantasy. It all culminates in becoming a helpless fear, which then leads to this climactic release, the juicing. It's like a ritual, a whole sequence.
And that right there? That gets to the absolute core of why this is appealing. It's not really about being big. It's about the complete, total surrender of your control. It's the fantasy of going from a person with choices and agency to an object of spectacle, totally helpless, totally immobile, and completely at the mercy of everyone else.
All right, so we've got our two definitions. Now for the fun part. Let's put them side by side and just see how shockingly similar the story beats really are. Just look at this. It's practically a one-to-one mapping. Both kick off with an involuntary, unstoppable transformation. Both feature a loss of identity and a very public, kind of grotesque spectacle. But here is the crucial twist. Where classic body horror finds pure terror in losing control, blueberry inflation finds an erotic charge in surrendering that control. It's the exact same road, just leading to a totally different emotional destination.
And hey, it's not just us making this connection. As the source material points out, Violet's transformation really is a body horror sequence, just packaged for kids. When you break it down beat by beat, it has everything you'd find in an adult horror movie. It's not a stretch at all, it's a direct parallel.
Which, of course, leads us to the absolute heart of the matter. This is the question this whole thing hinges on. What happens when that terror, that fear of transformation, is met with even just a flicker of desire? That's the moment fear starts to curdle into something else entirely. And that's the space where this whole subculture was born.
So how does that alchemy actually happen? How does a terrifying idea get twisted and repurposed into something erotic, something even, playful? Let's look at the ingredients. Well, there are a few key things going on. First, on a biological level, the wiring in our brains for fear and for sexual arousal are surprisingly close. Second, this often falls under consensual non-consent. It's a kind of role play where someone agrees to a fantasy where they pretend to lose control. Third, the sheer absurdity of it, turning into a literal blueberry, keeps the whole thing on the fun side of fear. And finally, it's a performance. It's a shared, ritualized thing.
And this is just such a perfect way to put it. It's like taking the terror of a David Cronenberg movie and transforming it into a kind of sacred play. The body gets reclaimed. It stops being a site of pure horror and instead becomes a ritual space for a consensual, chosen transformation.
1. It all started with just one single scene.
It's truly amazing, isn't it? That this entire complex subculture, with its art and its stories and its roleplay, it all grew from that one scene. So let's pull the lens back a bit. Because as niche as this might seem, it actually plugs into some incredibly deep, incredibly ancient human themes about transformation and control and rebellion. I mean, think about it. The idea of transformation as a punishment for pride, that's ancient. It's all over Ovid's myths. The idea of losing control, of being filled with divine madness, that's the whole point of Dionysian rites. Roald Dahl used it as a simple moral lesson, but what the modern kink community does is so subversive. It takes the curse, it takes the punishment, and it reclaims the whole thing as a gift.
So why does any of this matter? What's the big takeaway? It's that in a culture that is absolutely obsessed with bodily perfection and control, this fantasy becomes an act of profound erotic rebellion. It's a way of standing up and saying, you know what? I reject the pressure to be small and neat and contained. I choose to be big and leaky and messy, and I'm going to find power and pleasure in that.
And we're going to end on this. It's this powerful invocation from inside the community that just reframes the entire concept. What could so easily be written off as just a weird fetish is transformed into this surprisingly poignant statement of radical self-acceptance. It's a wish, really. A wish that the things society might shame you for, being too much, too loud, too big, can instead be the source of your greatest power.